Morning to you. For those who are not aware, we, especially our friends, we are going through the books of Nehemiah, and we are only 2 or 3 chapters towards the end, and afterward, Lord willing, we'll go on to the book of Esther. So we can look forward to much study from Nehemiah and Esther. I'm not sure if you are aware that the passage that we are looking at, or I have been assigned this morning, is a long passage. Actually, it's Nehemiah 11, 36 verses. I only chosen to read 2 verses and added book of Isaiah and also probably one from Daniel. Now, we have only read the opening 2 verses and verse 18. And then we will see later on that verses 3 to 24 lists the current residents of Jerusalem, while verses 25 to 36 lists the former territories of Judah and Benjamin. So I spare the scripture reader from getting choked with the word names of the place or the people. But we will look at the critical 2 verses, verse 1 and 2. But I want to say that the topic for today, living in the city of God. We are few weeks away from our National Day. This is not a National Day message, living in the great city of Singapore. No, it says living in the city of God. But of course, I will have to make reference to our modern day Singapore. We have done quite well. God has blessed our nation. But we go back to the past a little. There was a time when this, especially Woodland New Towns in the 1970s, looks like this, undeveloped. So whenever those of us remember, whenever we talk about Woodland New Towns, we talk about it as being too far, too inconvenient, too ulu. Nobody wants to go there. Too remote. Transportation not good enough. No, I don't want to go there. Then also, I happen to live in the West in the 90s. Jurong West Extension. The word extension tells you it's really extend towards the west, far west. It's again very inconvenient. But Jurong West Extension, of course, was famous for the late 1990s, where the Nanyang Ananta were later on called and converted to a full university, Nanyang Technological University, in May 1996. The same goes for those living in the east. In the east, you have the Punggol of 1986. You see coconut trees there. You see Punggol Lane 17, 18, very close to the sea. But now you go there, you don't see anything of that sort. You see Singapore Institute of Technology, SIT. You see all the big corporations going there. When you talk about all these places in Singapore, you realize that it affects places. Because it also, the government wants to bring about changes. Changes must come also with relocation. Then it must come with mindset changes. It must come with infrastructure changes, transportation. People have to be incentivized to relocate there. They must give you a lot of benefits and build infrastructure. So the MRT started in 1987. You have ECP in 87. You have CTE that comes in 1991. You have KPE, of course, much later. But you find that everything is done by the government to bring you there. They try to convince you there it's a good place, it's a nice place, it's going to repopulate, to spread out and to tell you how good it is. Somehow, it is true also of Nehemiah. When we come to Nehemiah 11, we would have crossed the part about the rebuilding of the wall of Jerusalem. Things have generally been stable enough. But what about the population? The question has been asked. You see, at the beginning of Nehemiah 1, Jerusalem was in ruins. So there need to be rebuilding. The walls have to be rebuilt. It's not safe because with the wall not been built, the security is in question or was in question. So the walls have to be built, gate have to be installed, everything has to be secured before you can really move in or encourage the population to go in. But the fact is, Jerusalem has to be repopulated, much like the government here believe that we have to relocate our citizens, relocate our population, spread out. They can't be just living at one spot. But if we go further into our study, although there are some similarities between the Singapore population movement and here in Nehemiah, there are differences. The differences are very unique. Jerusalem is not like any other city. Jerusalem is not like any other towns anywhere else. There are two very important points about Jerusalem. That it is historical, it is sacred. It is historical, it is sacred, and it is a unique place. Then and now. It's unique then because of the history. God has somehow chosen Jerusalem to be her city, and it is important then, it is also important today. It is there that we find the emphasis, a lot of emphasis on worship. Worship. People going there to worship, to recite, to serve, and to stay there as its residents. It's about the people that is going to go to Jerusalem. It's also about the people that has been, you read the text, they volunteer to go there. The people who have been chosen by lot, they cast lot as we read the text. Jerusalem isn't like any other city. It's not just any other city. The move to repopulate there was very vital, important for the Israelites, for God's people. God has chosen is Jerusalem. And the move for God's people to and reside there is understood, important. It goes beyond just modern day concern for properties and convenience. Of course, modern day we talk about going to certain place, the place value, property value will increase, and more people will come with more conveniences. But in those days, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just properties or convenience. The faith, the belief of the people were very vital consideration. And that's why you find all the emphasis in the city of God. Living there, God is chosen place. God's people must go there. Now, let's bring you to Nehemiah 7. At the point of Nehemiah 7, what was the state? Nehemiah 7, verse 1 and 4 tell you the state of the so-called completion at that time. By Nehemiah 7, you find the place is fairly completed. Even then, it says in verse 1, when the wall has been built, right? The wall has been built, and I had set up the doors. So doors are also included. Then I also include, Nehemiah says, there are also gatekeepers for security. Then there are singers for worship. There are Levites. All this has been appointed. So Nehemiah 7:1 tells you the point of completion. Verse 4, it says, the city was wide and large, referring to Jerusalem, but the people within it were few. You know this is the word? But the people within it were few. No houses has been rebuilt. So even though it was so-called at the state of completion, there's still some lack. Some lackings. The city was wide, large, people few, no houses had been built. How to really populate a place if you don't have houses? You don't have people to reside first before they worship and serve. In that sense, Woodlands, Jurong West, Punggol are in a better shape. We are in a much better shape. They provide all this basic before you move. But Jerusalem, important as it were, still have some lack, right? So what were the challenges of living in Jerusalem? You remember that before the rebuilding of the city walls, the gate has to be put into place. Everything has to be fortified. Now with this in place, still there was limited, we call it limited active life, to make it very attractive for people to stay. Limited because of all these reasons. And so we find the fact is that only a minority of Judah's total population live within the city's wall. Minority. And Nehemiah knew that these weak numbers must be just dramatically increased. If you want to encourage people to go there, also they have to consider commercial life. How are they going to live there? How are they going to function beside worship service? How are they going to stay there and enjoy a healthy commercial life? So the challenges. There were challenges, and these are real challenges. The challenges is one, the people were living outside the city, or rather the majority of the people were living outside the city because they depended on livestock and farming for the stable living. Follow? If they move to the city, the sustenance can be affected because there is this challenge of now I'm so dependent on livestock farming to get my stable living. Now I have to move. So there is this challenge. This moving also means the way of life has to change. Correct? Last time our parents says, I like a type house, I like the big land, the houses, because I can run around, I have many dogs, I have trees, I can grow durian trees, I can grow. When I move, I have to give all that up. So, moving out of comfort zone. Moving out of what you have been used to, your change of life. So way of life would be much different living in the city. There is no doubt about it. Living in a rural area was comfortable to them, but there is a new challenge now. Move. If God has given you a city, you are to reside there, you also need to move out of your present comfort zone. There will be a change in your way of living. Third reason, the challenges, is a costly transition. It's costly, because the spacious countryside is to the restricted city life. One is spacious, one is restricted. You have limitation in space. And when you move, talk about social factor now. When families decide to move, they will separate from their old-time neighbors. My old neighbors don't want to move, I move. So there will become kind of separation. Immediate communities change. Your old kampong, you have that group of people, you live for the last 20, 30 years, your father, your grandfather, all stays there. Now you move. You are separated now from your comfortable communities. You go on to a new communities on which now the city is in a state of development. Now, most of us living in the 60s, 70s, 80s will understand all these challenges. You probably have moved from one place to the other. Now, if I ask the show of hands, how many are you staying? The present place you are staying, you have been staying since 1950s. Hardly anyone will say, I've stayed there. Most of you would have moved from one place to another for whatever reason, for children, for work, for whatever is, or maybe you have been prospered, you need a better house, you need to upgrade to not to a remote place, but to a exclusive place. All right. So changes. Having spoken all this, we must ask the question, why is there a need to populate Jerusalem? Have you thought about it? So much challenges, consideration. Why again the need to repopulate Jerusalem, and why is it so vital that God's people gather there? Why is it so? What is so special about Jerusalem?
What is so special that after the rebuilding, there was so much opposition. Now you still will encourage your people to go populate the city. Think about it. It has to do with the city itself. This, you see, in Nehemiah 11 verse 1, and give you a certain clue there. What is Jerusalem? It says that they dwelt in Jerusalem. The rest of people cast lot to bring 1 out of 10 in Jerusalem, the holy city. The key reason Jerusalem was unique and is not comparable to others, or others not comparable to Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was and still is the holy city of God. So the people recognize it. It is the holy city of God. The emphasis there, the holy city of God, living in the holy city of God. And then the Levites took the clear lead there. There were 284 in the holy city of God. Then in Isaiah, they added on to emphasize about this holy. They call themselves of the holy city of God. State themselves upon the God of Israel. So the holy city of God, Jerusalem, has the idea of where God is, where the God of Israel is. And then the emphasis is the Lord of hosts is his name. He resides there. This is the place of great significance, the holy city. And Isaiah 52 tells you, put on your strength, O Zion, encouraging the people. Put on your beautiful garment, O Jerusalem, the holy city. Again, the emphasis on Jerusalem, the holy city. I have to add on one verse. In prophecy, in Daniel's prophecy, Daniel chapter 9, 24 talks about after the second 70 weeks were completed upon the holy city, referring again to the prophecy of Jerusalem to bring about the Messiah. The last part, to anoint the most holy. Again, the holy city of Jerusalem has the idea of prophecy being fulfilled, the coming of the Messiah. That is why, if that's holy, why do you keep away from it? Obviously, it goes hand in hand. The holy city will be populated, will be filled with God's people, where God is. That's why there is a simple need to repopulate. The people understood this. I'm sure the people understood this. They don't need much challenge to go to recognize the importance of this place. Jerusalem was God-given. Not just a place of residence, but a place of worship. And it is a testimony of how the great God of theirs have delivered them, have brought them out of Egypt, given them a place they called their own. This was to be the holy city of God. So the people of God recognized it. But not only that, the heathen also saw that this city was different. Let me challenge you. The heathen also see this city as different. They saw that God was with his people. Today, bringing up to today's, we upbeat to today. Today, if you are following the news and happenings, you will understand that Jerusalem is important biblically, historically, militarily, politically, commercially. It's important. No need to try to convince you. The news is all about Israel today. It centers around the holy city, the important city, which I will elaborate a little more later on. Now we look at the text again. 1 and 2 summarize to you the whole passage. How about verse 3 and 4? Verse 3 to 24. In verses 3 to 24, you'll find that it's at least those who are already residents in Jerusalem. even though it's not so populated, there were already a certain group of people, about 2,005 of them, and then it lists down the residents of Jerusalem. It lists them down in terms of laymen, priests, Levites, gatekeepers, and the other servants. I have taken the liberty to spare you the reading and give you the section of verses and the numbers that were recorded for us. And when you come to the right-hand side, you find that the layman 928. 928 comprises of 36% out of 2576. Then the priests and Levites combined, 46 and 11%, 57%. Half of them are priests and Levites. And then you have gatekeepers, the essential people, the logistic people. You notice the percentage. This is how we try to understand the whole passage of difficult reading. We break down into tables and we understand the numbers. The priests and Levites, God's servant, took the lead. You notice this? The priests and Levites, we call it God's servant, they took the lead. 57% of them, followed by the laymen. Laymen here, I put them as volunteers, 36%. And then there are other essential logistical and support personnel, 6%, 1%. You see, the numbers tells the story. The numbers tells you that the Levites, the priests, set an example. They set an example by dwelling in the city of God. Maybe they felt it was their call and duty. Maybe it seems clear that they must do it, and they did it willingly. The fact is clear, they ministered in the city of God. In the holy city, worship and service were very important. It was acknowledged by these leaders. And then it was followed by laymen. Laymen are those whom I would say sincere, committed, volunteers, mature members. They want to serve the Lord. They took the lead. They followed the lead. Surely when it comes to the call to dwell and serve in the city of God, today I look at it, the application part. When it comes to the call to dwell and serve in the city of God, I would think it will be wherever the Lord put us in. We must do likewise. We must take the lead in worship, in service. We set the examples. And if you, as I mentioned, if you go on reading the passage, verses 25 to 36, it lists down the former territories of Judah and where other Jews live. Given the breakdown, this breakdown of register of people's dwelling places, the family belongings, their vocation, you really will understand why I only ask you to read verse 1 and 2. Because verses 1 and 2 is a summary verses for the entire chapter. Verses 1 and 2 tells you who stayed in this place, who were the volunteers, and so on. All right, so verses 1 and 2 are the summary verses for the whole chapter, and it again emphasizes the important city of God, Jerusalem. What are the lessons that we can draw from this passage of record? I think we can look at first how the leaders and the other Jews responded to the call. It must begin with an understanding of the call. I think they understood. I believe the leaders understood the call. An understanding of the call to embrace the fact that Jerusalem was and still a holy city of God. They must accept, or they must have accepted, that Jerusalem was the holy city of God for his people. Jerusalem is God-given, and his people has to populate. It's vital for them to relocate, to settle there. Now today, modern day Jews also understood that God has given them this land. We are not going to politics to talk about how big the land is and all these things, the covenant, no. But it is agreed Jerusalem today is still God's holy city. Loving and being there means a lot of meaning. For Jews, it is quite natural for them to say, I will go back to their home natural land, Jerusalem, to Israel. Their loving and being there means much more than we can ever understand. The importance of the holy city today cannot be overemphasized, even religiously and politically. Today, if the suggestion that Jerusalem should be the capital of Israel already has sparked controversies. Controversies among Jews, Christians, Muslim, others. Jerusalem is holy not just to Christians. It's holy to the Jews, Judaism. It's holy to Christianity. It's holy to the Muslim. So it is a place of grave importance. Of course, the Jews understood that long ago. They understood that Jerusalem is unique. It is the holy city of God, not just another city. So for the first point, I think when we come to this passage, it is to understand, accept this fact. We're not talking about any other city. We're talking about the city of God, the city where God dwells in, where God calls his people. So understanding and accepting this demand therefore requires that we exercise active obedience. There must be active obedience. And at least in the passage we see, verse 1, there was active obedience. So the first point from verse 1, you can see there was leadership by example. Do you miss it? Look at verse 1 again. Now the leaders of the people live in Jerusalem. You see that? Now the leaders of the people live in Jerusalem. This is leadership by example. The leaders believe in the rebuilding project. They persuaded others to join them. They make sacrifices to the rebuilding work. Now that it's completed, do you think that the mission was completed? They believe the mission of rebuilding is completed, but they need to go on further. They need to live there. They live in Jerusalem as a show of leadership by example. They could not be calling others to relocate without they themselves relocating. I can't be telling people, go and stay there. And then they keep away. A word to all the leaders here. Today, if you declare that the work that you are doing is worth doing, if you declare that you are doing a great work, and it is a great work, then you must back it up. You must back it up with your commitment and example. So because people's minds are changed through observation and not through argument. You don't need to argue with your people. Let them observe your examples. Leadership by examples. Because people's minds are changed when they observe. You make a good example, they observe. You don't need to have too much argument and convincing them. You do it, you show that. And of course, in the second passage, in verse 1, again, verse 1, there was submission by vote. So you have leadership by example, you also have submission by vote. The verse says, and the rest of the people cast lots to bring 1 out of 10 to live in the holy city. Casting lot. Interesting enough that the 1 out of 10 principle was adopted, very much like the tithe giving, very much like giving of the 10%. The casting of vote was not uncommon in those days. The people submitted to it, believing that God will work in casting lot. So some may debate, how can we throw the dice? How will we cast lots? But those days, they believe that the casting of vote is one way to determine God's leading. Whatever your view on casting vote, it is not blind chance. Because the people believe God leads through even the casting vote. So in decision making, leaders also take a vote. Today, if you are in a committee, you take a vote, right? You evaluate, you take a vote. And then the leaders bind themselves to the vote. If it's a majority vote, if it's a 2/3 majority, they bind themselves to the outcome. In election of leaders, it is also vote casting one. They tell you, indicate if you want to support this one. But the main difference in Christian circle today is that we don't practice one canvassing. We don't tell the deacons, go around, put your placard, support me, but vote for me. I can do for you this. We don't do that. We don't do canvassing of vote. Only we tell you, do it prayerfully. Be prayerful about it. Pray for the leaders. Pray for the members to cast their vote with wisdom, with understanding. Whatever it is in this passage, the people whose lot fell on them responded. So they took vote casting seriously. So we have submission to the vote. The third thing is interesting in verse 2. The people blessed all the people who willingly offered to live in Jerusalem. So you have another group of people, volunteers. They were followers by volunteering. I'm going to introduce to you one new word, followership. Some of you may always hear fellowship. How about followership? Followership is a leadership term by Peter G. Northhouse. Followership is a process whereby an individual or individuals accept the influence of others to accomplish a common goal. Followership involves a powerful differential between the follower and the leader. Followership carries with it a responsibility to consider the morality of one's action, the rightness, the wrongness of the outcome of what one does as a follower. Followers and leaders work together. They work together to achieve common goals, and both share a common moral obligation to those goals. Today, God may be calling some of you to be leaders. You must step forward. But sometimes God may be calling you to learn to follow, learn to submit, learn to follow, exercise through followership. The volunteers here, when you read the 1 and 2 and the passage, the volunteers here may have supplemented those names who have been reviewed by Lord. So you have the second class, that those 9 out, the 10%, they have been reviewed by Lord. After this second class, there could be a third class of people who decide to volunteer, because some of these first 10% did not feel it comfortable. And then there were people in the volunteers group says, I can offer to go in your place. All right, I can offer to go in a place. People whose circumstances were such that they feel that they are better off to volunteer to take over those voted. Whatever the nature of the volunteers, this is a reminder. This is a very clear reminder that in the vast army of God, with no compulsion do we sort of exert on you, but rather there must be pressure of love. We must sort of pressure and compel each other by love, so that we will all willingly offer ourselves to the work of the Lord. So that sometimes you are even willing to be a volunteer to take over somebody. And that is the way it works. Right? That's the way it works. Let me conclude this by when you look at this picture, it is a nice picture of Jerusalem today. Very nice picture. But the fact is, number one, God does call some of us to serve in hard places. Don't let this beautiful picture deceive you. It is still a hard place to serve in. Go to Jerusalem today. It's a place of controversy. It's not easy to serve there. Try convert people. See if you get into trouble. Try convert. You will find it is not an easy place to serve. Maybe it's a good place to visit. Tourists, your 10 days, 11, 12 days, you enjoy yourself, you think you know a great deal. but try serving there. The relocation to Jerusalem was a test for the leaders and the people's willingness to serve wherever were needed. Yes, service and obedience may cost us our comfort. It brings inconveniences. And sometimes, service and exercising obedience may cost us sacrifices. But the fact is, it brings blessing. You agree? Those who have served through hard times will tell you, ultimately, it brings blessing. It is said that the Spartan mother, in the Greek, the Spartan mother giving her child his shield when going to battle will tell the son this, son, you either come back with this or upon this. You either come back, son, either this, the shield, or upon this. This woman didn't raise the child for comfort, obviously. They didn't raise the child to be sons of comfort and luxury. They raised them for glory. They raised them for battle. To them, honor mattered more than life. Courage was the only legacy worth leaving behind. The Spartan mother knew what was more important. For this time that we are living in, could Herod be your city of promise? As a matter of reflection, could this place be your place of worship? Could this be where God wants you to be? Not just to enjoy yourself, not just to feel comfortable, but to bring blessings. We hope Herod can be a place where you worship, you serve, you are comfortable, but you bring blessings to others. You are a blessing to others as you are blessed. Of course, looking at the history of Herod, there were difficult times, and there will be difficult times. There will be inconveniences. Maybe the next round inconveniences would be your renovation. And when I foresee the next half year or 1 year, you might be inconvenienced to have to squeeze into a smaller room to worship together while this place has been renovated or the third story has been renovated. Inconveniences, or maybe you have to make sacrifices. But to God's people, I say, stay on. Stay on. To be in the city of God, to rebuild the city of God means submission by leadership. It means acceptance of vote. It means personal choice. It is a challenge to all of us, leaders and others. Perhaps the Lord is prompting you to do something, to go somewhere, to stay in this church. Will you heed His call? This might be a call for you to trust God. Leave your comfort zone. Leave your comfort area. Be a witness. Be a blessing. It involves sacrifice. But doesn't discipleship always involve sacrifice? Doesn't discipleship is a call to sacrifice? A call to be willing to serve where God calls us? Indeed, for the people who volunteered to live in Jerusalem, they show us that sometimes they have to act as the Lord lead without external push. That means they must believe that when the Lord speaks to me, I will go. I don't need external push. I just listen to the inner promptings of the Holy Spirit. When the Lord moves, we go. Some of you may not be aware, I spent 10 years in the Singapore Navy. I've given 10 years of my youth to the Singapore Navy. But the joke that came from the Singapore Navy in the first few years of my enlistment, they always tell me, serving in the Navy means never always volunteer yourself. You only wait to be called. You only wait to be arrowed. Don't ever volunteer yourself. You are serving in the Navy. Never volunteer yourself. Wait to be called. Of course, I didn't take the advice. Thank God I never believed that. When when there are times I volunteer. There are times I just have to put myself forward where there's a need. In the Lord's work, remember, there were men who willingly offered to live in Jerusalem. You think they were blind? You think they were blind to not to see that the place was wide, open, not many houses built, inconvenient? You think they were blind? No, I think they volunteered with the eyes open. They didn't join the Navy. Understanding the important work of God is very important. More important is what is required of us: active, practical obedience, even when it causes inconvenient discomfort. We can serve and lead by example, leaders. We can respond only when called upon, or we can volunteer to serve as the Lord leads. Whichever way, I hope there's none of us here who will say, let's sit out active, let's throw aside active obedience. The local slang would be don't act blur. Don't act blur. Mental assent to the importance of the Lord's work and calling is not enough. Don't just mentally give assent. Neither would we want to encourage you to just mentally say yes. You must do more than that because you are God's people. Here's an important reminder. God calls some of us to serve in hard places. Could that Spartan mother example be yours? Then you must learn to serve in hard places, serve with the same resolve, with this shoe or upon it. Obedience may cost our comfort, even sacrifice, but believe me, obedience brings blessing. The city of God is built through faithful presence. A beautiful herald is also built by your faithful presence. Just being faithfully present is an important part of it. Imagine people who say how great herald is, but they're hardly present. Your faithful presence is more important than just mere wishes and hope. Living in the city of God is worship, service, and blessing. May God help us to be a part of it.